So hello and welcome. Lovely to see all of those messages coming through in the chat and lots of people joining us from the waiting room. A big warm welcome to this session. We're really glad to see you all online. And as we head into this campaign season, we've planned this session to help you as you're kind of starting out on your plans or refining your plans for your campaigns. Hopefully helping you to build campaigns that are designed to resonate with your target audiences and drive the actions that you want to see. So hopefully we'll have some useful things to share with you today. We'll have a mixture of learning and doing in this workshop, so hopefully everyone can get involved and really take something away that you'll be able to help improve your campaigns going forwards. I'm going to start by looking at why campaigns matter, look at some initial inspiration and examples. There'll be a chance to share any of the campaigns that have stood out to you, and then we popped a message in your WhatsApp chat inviting you to have a think of that before you come to today's session. And then we'll go through our 6-step framework to planning a campaign and then show you around our campaign planner tool, which some of you will have used before, for some of you that might be new. We'll have a group ideation activity, we'll share some next steps. We're also really excited to have Jimmy from the College of William and Mary share with us a bit later on today about one of their campaigns, which lots of you loved hearing about a few weeks ago in our networking sessions. I've asked him to briefly talk us through that campaign for a little bit of inspiration before we do our own ideation. But just to kick off with some introductions, I think I know all of you pretty well by now, but my name is Jasmine, for anyone I haven't met. I'm digital training lead here at Lightful and have experience with quite a variety of campaigns, really, from my previous roles in different organisations. We did lots of fundraising, lots of raising awareness and event registrations as well. Some of them would be really long-term campaigns. I also worked for a disaster response nonprofit, so sometimes it will be turning around a campaign within a day. So hoping to share some of those learnings with you as we go through our frameworks and tips today. And I'm also joined by the lovely Simran, so I'll hand over to her now.
Thank you, Jasmine, and thank you everyone for the lovely introductions. I must say, Glenn, I'm very jealous of your backdrop there. Looks very majestical. So I'm Simran. I've worked in social media and outreach for 5 years, where I've built a lot of campaigns, all with different goals and different communications, but the strategy always kind of tends to stay the same. So I'm excited to share some of those insights with you here today. And let's begin with some learning outcomes. So first, we're going to be recognizing the benefits of aligning campaigns with awareness days and fundraising moments. And then we're going to apply a 6-step framework to plan, launch, and run and review a digital campaign using our campaign planner tool. And then we're going to be creating a draft campaign idea using the campaign planner tool to map goals, audiences, channels, and timeline. But before we do that, it would be great to get a little bit more insight from where all of you are at today. So I'm going to quickly launch a poll. If I could find the button, there we go. Okay, so have you run a digital campaign before, and are you planning a digital campaign for this year? And you're also quick to the button, and I see a majority of people are saying yes, they've run a digital campaign before, which is always nice to see. And you, majority of you, very little, are not so planning a digital campaign for this year. So I hope this session is helpful to all of you. And let's kick things off with the big question, and that is, what is a campaign? So a campaign isn't just a one-off post or activity. It's actually a series of connected content built around a theme with the goal of engaging your audience, telling your story, and inspiring action. And campaigns bring focus and momentum. They let you amplify your work and invite others to be part of something bigger. And a campaign can be across multiple platforms, and it essentially is a series of content around one theme, aiming to bring your audience together to highlight your work, impact, and encourage you also take a specific action. Often, a great campaign will combine marketing methods to increase reach and be more effective. And lots of you have shared how you need to move towards online fundraising, as well as reaching new audiences and generating income from individual donors. And so fundraising campaigns are a great way of doing this. You could also run a campaign based on raising awareness or advocating for a particular cause, or maybe even growing newsletter signups or recruiting volunteers. So I'm sure this session will be come in handy for come in handy in the long run for all the different types of campaigns you'll see yourself running in the future. And an action that we would love for you to take while you are on the Bridge program is planning and launching a digital campaign. And that can be a fundraising campaign, one that's more focused on awareness raising, or even volunteer recruitment. And the campaign could be a 1-day campaign or one which runs for longer. So, whatever your goal is, Bridge is here to support you with that campaign planning and delivery. So, we hope you make good use of it. Okay. Many of you will be familiar with awareness days or weeks, and these key moments can be a great hook for a campaign. It's an opportunity to be part of something bigger and mobilize supporters in a particular time frame around a specific theme. So some of you might run 24-hour fundraising campaigns for key fundraising moments like Giving Tuesday or local giving days, but you also might consider celebrating an organization anniversary, which is a great opportunity to run a campaign for, because then you can focus on who you are as an organization and the impact that you've had over the years. I definitely recommend leveraging awareness days. It's important to do some research. So before you start your planner, do some research and find some key dates that you think will really resonate with your organization, your mission, and your audience. And I do suggest taking a look at the Awareness Day calendar that Lightful has, which may come in handy. I'm now going to move on to a simple way in which we can think about campaigns. So campaigns essentially start with a theme and then it develops into content with the aim of engaging an audience and ultimately to then convert them into driving or convert them into an action or just driving action. And that action might be to donate for the very first time, to sign up as a regular donor, to volunteer, to share an advocacy message or something else. But the point is, out of all of this, you start with your theme and then you design content that is aimed at engaging a specific audience to take a particular action. So it's important you think this way around as opposed to just putting out content that asks for an action before you've even thought about what kind of content or the kind of tone or way you think would resonate with your audience. So let's think about the benefits of utilizing campaign moments such as the awareness days I had just mentioned, because awareness days and key fundraising moments act as natural hooks. They give urgency, visibility, and also help you cut through a lot of the noise that's out there in the digital space. They're also great opportunities to reach people who may not otherwise engage with you, including new donors and supporters. And they also position your organization as part of a much wider conversation, such as in Giving Tuesday, and there's also International Women's Day, maybe, and Earth Day. So definitely getting you hooked into that whole thought leadership spectrum, which may be important for some of you on this call here today. But also a chance to experiment creatively. It's a chance for you to test new storytelling or campaign formats without committing to a long timeline. And if you see that it does, and if you see it successful, then maybe stick to it, but maybe there may be some parts that don't work so well, and that's when you kind of let them go. Importantly, they amplify your voice by riding the wave of hashtags, news cycles, and shared social momentum. It's definitely a good area to kind of hop on. Okay, so we're now going to move into your group discussion. We mentioned in your WhatsApp group that it'd be great if you could have a little think about any campaigns that you've come across that have stood out to you. And now is the time to share. So I'd like you all to think of maybe there's a campaign that you admire, and just share what do you think it did really well, and either come off mute and share not in person, via camera, or share in the chat. And this will really help us all learn from real world examples and just see what kind of resonates amongst us. So is there anyone that has a campaign? Is there anyone here that has a campaign that they feel that went really well or kind of resonated with them? We have Madeline sharing, saying that Charity Water always inspires me with their campaigns. It'd be nice if you could share what about their campaigns do you think resonates most with you, and what do you think they do well? I think I do know who they are, and I've looked at the website recently, so I kind of agree, I would like to say. Um, but I'm not going to jump to any conclusions.
Can I share?
Yeah, of course.
So I was actually just talking to the I'm going to say the head of Literacy Alliance, but just in the last, I would say 3 to 6 months, we all are in the same building, but their presence on LinkedIn has been tremendous. So much so that I'm seeing, what they're working on, awards they're getting, whether it's contributions or grants or, stories about their students, what they're learning. So to me, they've done an incredible job on their campaign. And I think that it's great because I can share it, I can learn from it. Even though we're in the same building, we may not run into each other all the time, but they've done a tremendous job educating everyone about what is happening at Literacy Alliance.
It's amazing. Thanks so much for sharing, and definitely a good kind of case study to highlight the importance of like behind the scenes, like using LinkedIn as an opportunity to share what's going on behind the scenes, what is your team up to in the day to day, and it's always
Yeah.
a way to kind of stick out to other people that may be seeing interested in what you're doing. But yeah, thanks so much for sharing, Manisha. And we've got a lot of comments in the chat as well. So I'm gonna find some. It's also moving so fast. Um, so we've got Daniela saying, I like Sandy Hook's Promise campaign. I normally receive their emails, and I love the appeals coming from the parent's point of view. More specifically, I received an email from a parent sharing that it would be their child's birthday, and it was very moving. Thanks so much for sharing, Daniela. And I think, yeah, that's another good, well, not tactic, but technique, I guess, to use is kind of looking at exploring the different perspectives in which you could tell a story that is close to your mission. And definitely a parent's point of view in that situation is super important, and one that will be very moving and hopefully drive people to action. So thanks so much for sharing. And then we've got Madeline. Charity Water had a campaign focused on donor transparency. They shared that private donors fund their operations, so all donations go directly to their efforts. That's a really good one, actually. And so I think, yeah, that's definitely a really good way to kind of, again, what I was saying about the behind the scenes. I think transparency is a really good, maybe a good theme, maybe that could drive some potential campaigns in the future as well. Kind of showing people where the money is going as opposed to why you need money is always a good way to get people to donate. I'm just going to look at one more, and that's going to be Payson. One of the most captivating campaigns I have seen is the one that St. Jude's Hospital provides. It is beautifully done and inspirational. It's why I find it so difficult to develop a campaign for our museum. It's hard to compete with something like St. Jude. It's better for us not to campaign at the same time as something like Giving Day. Definitely, I could see. I mean, in my past, I guess I mean, I had my fair share of campaign envy, but it's always a good kind of way to kind of replicate, not replicate, but use them as a template and see what are they doing well, and more so, why is it resonating with their audience, and why do you think maybe something that you maybe there's a way in which you can kind of take that on for yourself and see if that also hits the same. So thank you very much, everyone, for sharing. But keep the chat coming. We've still got Pillar monitoring the chat. And now I'm going to launch another campaign, another poll, sorry. Because we love hearing from you so much. And that is, how confident do you feel about planning a digital campaign? And if you are planning a campaign, what is your primary campaign goal? And I'm going to shoot to the second question because I find that the most interesting, and I can see that fundraising is everyone's goal here today. We've got some focusing on awareness and volunteer recruitment, all of which are super interesting and valuable and worthwhile goals. So thank you all so much for sharing. And I'm now going to hand it over to Jasmine.
Thank you. And thanks everyone so much for sharing. I think it's so helpful. Obviously we see lots of campaigns as a bridge team, but it's so cool to see stuff that we haven't seen before. And for some of you sharing local campaigns where it's recognized across multiple people here. And so hopefully have a scroll through and get some inspiration from other organizations. And of course, shout outs to other bridge participants, which is very lovely. And actually, just to build on your answers to those poll questions, we've kind of thought about campaigns as a big picture, what the kind of the landscape looks like of different types of campaigns, and now your own. So how confident you're feeling, what your primary goal is. We'd love to let you have a couple of minutes just to think about what campaign opportunity you might want to engage with. And for some of you, you're well underway at planning your year-end campaigns. Some of you are starting to plan out the details. And I know some of you on the call today haven't planned a campaign before. So we've got a real range of stages, which I think would be great to collaborate on later on in your discussion rooms. But for most of you, of course, I know this is most likely going to be your match campaigns. You might be using Giving Tuesday as a key moment. You might be aligning it with a key organisation moment. I know some of you are using anniversaries or similar. Often it's the holiday season, generally is kind of a really great opportunity for your audiences. But have a think about your theme and an objective, so an overall objective. So maybe that's we want to raise this amount, or we want to get this many new donors or this many regular donors. So I'm just going to give everyone 2 minutes now to kind of build on what you've thought about, note down a theme and an overall objective for a campaign that you might run, whether that's one you're already planning or something you're just kind of floating an idea about. So that could link to something big, something local, but I'll give you a couple of minutes now just to have a think, note it down, and then we'll have a chance to share and think about that in a moment. See that lots of you have been very busy writing things down. I'm just going to have a quick look through. Once you've written them down, feel free to share in the chat. Another great opportunity, just kind of motivate and inspire each other. But if you don't want to type it in, we will have a chance to share in a bit more detail in your breakout rooms later. But Carrie is a great example. So Carrie's planning a 340th anniversary campaign. That's huge, with the goal to raise $3,400. Amazing. So tying that into the number, I think it's really nice because you've got that link and there's a hook, and it's kind of a play on the anniversary. So it's very easy to communicate. It's memorable. It's a bit different. So I really like that. Thanks for sharing, Carrie. Having a look through, Karen saying you're on the fence about Giving Tuesday. Yeah, I think it's similar. We have a similar conversation with lots of people each year, and I think it depends often on your audience and the environment that they might be in about whether it's actually a really busy day and hard to cut through, or if actually your audience are people who love to give on Giving Tuesday. And maybe if there's a way to unpack some of your donor data of thinking, do we see a spike on Giving Tuesday, or actually is our spike later on maybe more towards kind of Christmas season? And that might help to kind of get a feel for it. Or some people like to use it as a day to kick off their campaign. So there's less pressure on the day itself, but you're part of that momentum. So if your audience is going to give to someone on Giving Tuesday and you want it to be you, how are you kind of in that conversation, I suppose? I love Gary's saying that your Christmas and New Year theme is 12 days of giving. So you're going to be sharing stories in which how you're supporting your community, which is really lovely. I love that. We've got a 60-year anniversary, a 90th year. So some really great moments. I love that. And some really exciting themes. So I think hopefully, as actually, if you're all scrolling to the chat as well, you can see that mixture of themes. There's some like really big awareness days, and then there's some really specific ones that mean you can kind of tell those more niche stories and get those audiences on board, which is amazing. So loving those, and I'll have a proper read through in just a moment as well. But for now, we're going to talk through our campaign planning framework and just help identify some key steps to break down planning a campaign, particularly for those of you who are here for the first time thinking about, where do I begin? These goals sound amazing, but how do you even kind of start with that? Some of you will be familiar with some of these steps from previous years, so feel free to share tips as we go in the chat, but also just to review and make sure that you haven't missed anything while you're creating your plans. But we're going to walk through these 6 simple steps of strategy, campaign theme, audience, task timeline, engagement, and review. And so the first thing is really thinking about creating a strategy for your campaign. So that's why we just had a moment there to decide what your campaign will be about. And we've talked about the different awareness days you might be looking at, and then start with your goals. So have your SMART goal: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, which I can see lots of yours are in the chat, which is brilliant. And then within that, you've chosen the type of your campaign as well. So whether it's fundraising, as we saw, most of you are aiming for that at the moment. Some of you are looking at awareness, advocacy, newsletter signups, different goals you might have. This, of course, sets the direction, and often we jump to thinking about fundraising, but you might have other goals too, in which you can follow the same framework. So really think about what it is you need as an organisation and how you can use a campaign to help you achieve that. And thinking about what is the tangible thing, whatever your big goal is, what's the tangible thing you want to achieve. So I think we've already seen some fantastic examples at thinking about that outcome, and then all of that informs that strategy. And then based on what your goals are, then we can think about a theme. So this is going to be really integral to all of your messaging, and some of you have already got some really great creative ideas about your anniversaries, or about what you're going to be, stories you're going to be telling throughout the kind of holiday period. So having that emotive theme is really helpful. It's really key. It's that kind of thing that people are going to remember, the things that we talked about earlier. You know, what did you remember from other people's campaigns? And then it's helpful to plan any like statistics, evidence that you can incorporate into your campaign that really kind of provide that wider context and kind of set the story you're telling within the scene that you're operating in. And then, of course, planning your call to action. Sometimes I think we just assume, oh, it's really obvious, you want people to donate, but actually you want to have a specific call to action that aligns with the goals you've set for your campaign. For a fundraising campaign, of course, you want people to donate, but actually, can you be more specific? Is it you're asking someone to, if you're aiming it at someone for the very first time, is it donate $5 today? Or is it actually saying, could you commit to give $10 a month? Or are you aiming for people to give a much larger gift? And actually that really affects the call to action you're putting out there. And within a campaign, you might have several different call to actions that you might share depending on the audience and the channel that you're using, which we'll come on to sharing in a moment. For something like awareness raising, you might want to reach a certain number of people with your campaign. So a great call to action would be asking your supporters to share your campaign messaging to help spread the word, whether that's through social media or a different channel. So for example, if you were creating a campaign for something like Mental Health Day, your emotive theme, you might be showcasing a story of one of your service users who has been impacted by poor mental health, the impact on their lives, but then also how your organisation is working to overcome those challenges through a particular project or programme. You can then evidence that with statistics about your wider work and your impact, and then plan a logical call to action, asking people to share their campaign on social media, by email, or maybe it's to make a donation. But at this stage, I'd say note down what you want your theme to encompass. Don't start creating the content yet, because what we need to think about next is our audience. So really thinking about who's going to be key to help deliver on the goals you've identified. So whether that's first-time donors, lapsed supporters, different people, then you can choose the channels that are most relevant to them, so that you're using channels that are most likely to engage them. And then you can plan what content's most likely going to appeal to them as well. So think about all those variables of your audience that we talked about before, their age, location, what they're interested in, what don't they like to see and interact with, what shows the results that you've got in previous years, like what has really driven donations from this particular group before. And refer back to your personas to make sure that you're creating content that's relevant for them. not trying to just target everyone with a general please donate message. It's being more specific, picking 1 to 2 priority audiences, and that way you can be a lot more focused and have a greater impact. And so based on that, you'll know which channels you want to use and really focus on where these audiences are most active, not kind of spreading yourself too thinly across lots and lots of different things. And then following this, you can kind of map out what actually needs to happen to get this campaign live. I know at the start it can feel like, well, everything needs to happen before Giving Tuesday, but actually what content do you need to create? Think about that realistically as well, like how often do you have capacity to share content? It doesn't have to be every single day, it doesn't have to be loads and loads of things, but actually what's realistic within the time that you have. And try and find a frequency that helps you build that momentum, increase visibility without then absolutely overwhelming yourself. Use a content calendar, use the Lightful platform to schedule your content in advance where you can, and kind of do that in concentrated chunks to give you a bit more headspace. And then think about what your posts will actually look like. So do you need to create some graphics, some videos? I remember from our previous sessions that lots of you have had great success with some kind of informal videos, which are doing really well on social at the moment, particularly. But if this is your first time doing something like this and you're really not sure kind of what type of content performs best, where to start, you can absolutely try sharing different types of posts, maybe a similar story in a video, an infographic, some photos, and just measure which gets the most engagement, or look back at previous content to get some insight. And then once you've made all those decisions of kind of what do you need, what are the ingredients of your campaign, you can map it out into a timeline, making a note of what needs doing and when, and break it down so that it doesn't feel like this massive thing that needs to all be done at once. And then we need to think about engagement, so how you can gain support and build momentum during the campaign. So it's really kind of spreading the word, involving as many people as possible, like your team, supporters, if you have any champions, ambassadors, influencers, people you've worked with before. It's great to keep these people in the loop on what you're planning, kind of giving them a bit of a heads up, a bit of an insider information, maybe through newsletters or contacting them in some way, but really encourage them to join in with the campaign and make sure they have the information that they need to help you spread the word. And of course, you might have some kind of really loyal regular donors who it might not be appropriate to ask them to give again if they've just given, perhaps. But what you can do is engage your most engaged supporters and turn them into ambassadors. So you could create a toolkit with messaging for them to share, kind of acknowledging, you've supported us for years. For this campaign, we'd love you to lend your voice, spread the word amongst your network, and help us to reach more people. Often people don't realize the impact that they can have just in spreading the word amongst their own networks, their own social channels, until you kind of spell it out. And actually, it can be quite a compliment to be asked as well. So it's a really nice thing to be able to do. If you are interested in doing something like that and you haven't before, we have some more content about this in our e-learning course, which we can share about working with ambassadors and influencers. We can also work through that in more detail in a one-to-one too. And then once your campaign is actually live, there's that kind of live engagement of responding to comments and messages, being active on social media. It can, of course, be really busy. So you might want to create a rota amongst your team just to spread out that monitoring responsibility there. But really importantly, just thanking supporters every step of the way. And this can really strengthen the relationship for future campaigns and help them feel appreciated too. The final step then is to review your campaign. So measure what's happened, see how you performed against your goals. You do want to kind of track that throughout. Obviously, it depends if you've got a one-day campaign or a two-week campaign, what that looks like. But really think about the objectives you set and then align some metrics that you want to be tracking. So looking at the data that's moving your goals forward, anything that's blocking, and use analytics tools to help you really understand that. But really, really importantly, to kind of learn and feed that into your next campaign. And then take some time to reflect. It can be such a hectic time of year, but having a moment perhaps with your team to be able to just note down, were there any surprises? Did anything go better than expected? Did you do again? Anything that actually wasn't worth the time? But thinking about metrics to track, there's some on your screens now. I would not say to track all of them for everything. Actually think about your overall goal and what metrics you might choose to measure depending on your campaign objective. So these are just some kind of inspiration if you're trying to think about what might be best to track. So if you're looking at donations, that fourth column, of course, you've got things like the total amount, but also whether you've got new or repeat donors and donation size. If you're looking at building engagement, you've got different things like opening emails, visiting your website, clicking, saving, sharing posts. All of those things are really valuable because they demonstrate some kind of interaction with your organization. We'll share this afterwards if you do want to refer back and kind of note down any that you'd like to really think about more. But hopefully this approach to planning a campaign makes it a bit clearer and helps you to know exactly what you need to think about in order to launch a campaign, and kind of go through that step by step and not feeling like super daunted at the beginning. But we also have a tool to help you with this. So this isn't a case of just memorizing that framework and going off and implementing it. Lots of you will have already started using the campaign planner. I know we sent out a link to it recently, so hopefully you're familiar with it. But if you're not, you can find it on the Lightful platform. On the left-hand menu, you've got the campaigns section. And I'm just going to bring up one that I've prepared. And you can see the sections here follow what we've talked about in terms of the different stages to look at in terms of planning a campaign. So you might start by giving it a name, the campaign type. But what I'd like to pull out here as well, actually, is the opportunity to get ideas, because sometimes I think we can find it a bit overwhelming to know even where to begin. And some of you I know have created a keystone story. So what you can do in this box, I've already done it, but you can select a story, you can select your keystone story, and it'll come up with a totally new campaign idea based on your organization story. Or you can add your own story in. So what I've done, actually, just for the sake of this example, is I'm talking about a campaign, and I'm using an example of Trussell Trust, which is a UK-based food bank nonprofit, and I've just copied their story in, and then I've asked it to generate me a campaign, and it's come up firstly with a name, which is End Hunger, Fuel Hope, which I love. We've got a description of what the campaign is, some helpful messaging that I could use in my communications. What's interesting is it says here, the story that I provide doesn't have any statistics, but here's some things you could go and look for. So can I find the number of food parcels, the percentage increase in food bank demand, and some helpful tips here, and some example call to actions, just some ideas for strategies. And this doesn't then say, right, here's a campaign, go do it, because we don't want to kind of remove the human element of this, but it's got ideas initially from our AI tool, and I can copy and paste that and use that as inspiration as I plan my campaign. So hopefully that's helpful. Actually, you can see some messages in the chat saying that it has been helpful, which is amazing. And yeah, play around with it, put some stories in, and have a little think and see if it comes up with any additional ideas that you haven't already thought of. But even without that AI element, you can essentially go through, add in those milestones that I've just mentioned in terms of what tasks do you have, when are they due, set some goals. You can have some check-ins too. So it wants me to check in weekly about my click-through rate, as that's the goal that I've set. And here I can note down all those details about my theme, who my audiences are, the timeline, and then a chance to remember to review at the end as well. So hopefully that will be helpful. And yeah, we'll remind everybody just to have a go with that tool as part of the match requirements as well. So even you just start off and have a play around, you don't need to have a fully fledged campaign in it, but just have a work through and see if that is helpful for you. But anyway, I've talked a lot about the theory, and what we're actually going to do now is I'm going to hand it over to Jimmy to talk to us a little bit about an example of a campaign that he ran, which everyone was very excited about because it involved squirrels, I believe. So I think I spotted you, Jimmy, amongst the 100 people who are on the call. So I will hand over to you now to talk through, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jasmine. I appreciate it. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about our Name a Squirrel campaign. It was incredibly successful and a lot of fun for us. I'll give you a quick overview of what I do, where I am here at William & Mary. Our university was chartered in 1693. It's the second oldest college in the United States and America's first university. I'm also an alum, so I'm very proud of that. About 8,000 students. We serve about 100,000 living alumni. We use the advancement model, so we've got about 280 people on staff. That's everything from our events to our major gift officers, me and my team in annual giving, as well as our alumni engagement colleagues. And in annual giving, we are really focused on donor participation and our donor pipeline. So that's some context around William and Mary. This next slide will give you some context around kind of where Name a Squirrel fit in our plans throughout the year, right? So we were looking at post One Tribe, One Day. That's our big university giving day. Last year was on April 2nd. It was very successful for us. You can see these numbers here. We were up 6% year over year in total donors, but we were behind about 10% after One Tribe, One Day in undergraduate alumni donors. Undergrad alums is really, as you might imagine at a university, an important piece of our donor puzzle. So we wanted to think through ways to really engage that community and talk to those important supporters of ours going into fiscal year end, right? We had seen from a lot of past fiscal year ends and working with other universities that, not a lot of donors care that it is June 30 and the end of our fiscal year. So we wanted to think through ways to engage those folks in a way that made some sense. And one of the campaigns that we came up with was Name a Squirrel. So the concept for this was fairly simple. You make a gift of $5 or more to anywhere at William and Mary, and we will honorarily name you a squirrel on campus. The marketing was very different for what we typically do. Up until One Tribe, One Day, a lot of our messaging is pretty traditional. It's very focused on impact and the difference that donors can make in the lives of our students, can provide life-changing opportunities for them and faculty research. That's all great. By the time you hit the end of the fiscal year, the donors who still haven't given have heard most of that messaging by then. So this campaign and the ones that we ran also during fiscal year end came out of what I call in Microsoft Teams the spaghetti group chat, because we just throw things at the wall to see what'll stick. And this is one of those. So we really wanted to lean into squirrels, right? I think every campus for every university thinks their squirrels are the best squirrels, and we certainly feel that at William and Mary. We sent 3 blitz emails over 1 week, mid to end of May. So the kind of general vibe was students have left for the summer, squirrels have taken over campus. You can see one of our emails, that kickoff email there. The sender was actually the William and Mary Squirrels. It's cut off there, but the signer says the yet to be named William and Mary Squirrels. And you can see our gift campus page here as well, where we directed folks to go make their gift and give to name a squirrel. So this campaign was really successful for us. It brought in some of those donors that we had been looking for, 235 of them to be specific, and you can see them broken down here by donor status, right? So the ones that really stick out to me are those lapsed donors, right? 25% were lapsed 1 to 5, meaning it'd been 1 to 5 years since their last gift. And then lapsed 6 plus at 21%. That's a huge lapsed 6 reactivation rate. I was looking at reports of donors who haven't given to William and Mary since 1992 and 1993. So one of the things that we were thinking of, right, is there's so many pieces that they have received in mail and email and social ads, and naming a squirrel is what brought them back to the university. Because we're a participation shop, this donor number was much more exciting to me. But $4,000 for initiatives around campus certainly isn't bad. You can see some of these really exciting names. We put them on social and put out calls for people to, if they can think of a better name, to make a gift and do that. We also found that we gave donors the option after they made their gift to either keep their digital certificate or they would receive a mailed certificate. About 50%, so it was half and half of folks wanted the mailed versus the just the digital. So it was really, really successful. One of the things that we're also looking at either for our calendar year end campaign this year or this same time for fiscal year end next year is to go back to these 230 some odd people. We really want to make sure we're retaining them and sending them an update and saying, hey, it's your squirrel, insert name here. I've had a great year. Make your gift to continue supporting, yada, yada, yada. So really exciting, really fun to be part of these micro campaigns, and a lot of fun to find a creative way to use our campus squirrels. So happy to answer any questions or throw it back to the Lightful team.
Thanks, Jimmy. Love that. Seeing lots of, everyone loving it in the chat. And so interested in those like you said, the lapsed donors, like they've heard your messaging. What got them back was a squirrel, and there's the nostalgia and the fun and the way I could see that just like cutting through other asks, other emails, and so super exciting. I can see. I haven't seen any questions. If anyone does have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, and maybe we can come back and ask any of those. But I think that looks amazing, and hopefully everyone's feeling very inspired now to go and talk about their campaign ideas. So I'm going to open up rooms, I think, for about 10 or so minutes, just for everyone to now think about the campaigns you've talked about. I know lots of you've got fully fledged ideas already, your themes, your goals, but also any challenges. And then we'd love for everyone to come back and share an idea or challenge from your groups. But hopefully, the kind of brains are whirring with creativity after seeing that spotlight. But I'll open up those rooms. If you can't join, do stay with us. Feel free to share in the chat, and the Lightful team will still be here. If you get stuck, if no one's in your room, feel free to come back and we'll redirect you to a room with some other people to chat with. And otherwise, we'll see you back here in just over 10 minutes. So thanks, everybody. And it'd be great whether you were in a room or whether you were doing some reflection here by yourselves, just to pop in the chat and share any particular new idea or a challenge that came up in your group. It would be really helpful to share some of those. That would be really helpful for us as a team to understand kind of where you're at as you're planning your campaigns. But hopefully you had some good discussions and had some constructive chats in those rooms as well. So I'll give you all a chance to share. I think everyone's now back with us, so welcome everybody. And maybe while you're doing that, I'll hand it over to Simran to talk us through the next steps and resources we've got. And then we've got some time for questions at the end as well, if anyone does have anything that's come up perhaps from those challenges. We'd love to read through any new ideas or challenges that came through your discussions. But over to you, Simran.
Thank you, Jasmine. So let's quickly go through the next steps. And the first step is to continue learning. So definitely do more of exploring more examples and looking at the guidance and just explore any Lightful Academy courses that you have in mind that you think may help you with your campaign. And then the second is to start planning. So do use the campaign planner. Jasmine did give a really helpful demo just now. So do definitely recommend that. And then as a reminder of your match actions for this month, which are tracked per organization, and those are to first attend or watch your campaign planning workshop. So those of you that are here today can tick that all off. And then for anyone who isn't here live, they have until the end of September to watch this. And then the second is, well, the same applies for the match Q&A drop-in that we have next week, where we'll be going into detail about the match, and we'll be sharing some tips for incorporating match messaging into your campaign as well. And then finally, for September, it's to use the campaign planning tool, which hopefully lots of you will be starting to do after today. And then we'll be sharing 3 short bespoke Lightful Academy courses to help with your match campaign planning. These aren't due until the end of October, and the team are currently working on creating them for you. So we'll be sending them to you as soon as they are ready, and if you want to get a head start. So nothing to do as of yet in regards to the courses. They aren't due until the end of October, just to flag. But the conversation in the chat, the conversation in the chat has been amazing. So please do continue this online onto WhatsApp. So take some time to scan your QR code, and also the Facebook group is a great place to connect and grow with others in the same journey as you that aren't in the same cohort. And then I'm just going to launch our final poll before I hand it back over to Jasmine. There we go. So how confident do you feel about planning a digital campaign now? And also please do rate the usefulness of this session. And then I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks everyone. I can see a few comments and questions coming through. So just wanted to pick up Gary's message. We shared a link to the campaign planner. If anyone can't access that, if you're not able to log into your Lightful account, drop us a message at support@lightful.com and we'll make sure that you have access. It should be tied to the email address that you have linked to your Lightful account, but let us know if you have any issues at all. And Mary's asking how to join the WhatsApp group. Yeah, so if you've got your mobile on you, you can either scan that QR code on the screen on the right-hand side, I think it should be, and that should be a link that takes you to the WhatsApp group if you've got the WhatsApp app installed on your mobile. If not, then we've got a link in the chat, but that if you're on your laptop at the moment, it will open up in your browser, but you might want to open that in on your phone, but I can drop you the link directly if that's helpful. So let me know how you get on with either scanning the QR code using your smartphone camera or following the URL that Pilar has posted. Great, glad you got it, Mary. Thanks. Yolanda asked for the campaign planner link as well, so I can paste that again, just a second. For getting to the campaign planner, if you just log into your Lightful account on the Lightful platform, let me show you actually. So when you log in, you'll be met with this homepage, and then on the left-hand side, you'll see campaigns, and that's how you get there. So don't worry about using the direct link that we've shared. Obviously, that should take you right there. But if you log into your Lightful account, if you log in and you're already on the Lightful Academy, and if this is kind of, wait for it to load, if this is the page that's most familiar to you when you're logging in, you can still click on the menu, head down to the Lightful platform and access it that way. So whichever way you normally log in, you should be able to find that. But if you get stuck, do let us know. Let me see if there are any more questions. There were some great comments actually following those breakout room discussions, which I thought was really interesting. I think Manisha shared something about keeping that being exciting, but also staying on brand. And for some of you where you might not have so much flexibility, I guess, with tone of voice, with branding, with visuals, is thinking about how you can still be true to your organization while also maybe trying to stand out and cut through the noise, and kind of really thinking about that. So I think that's a really interesting challenge, and definitely one that we resonate with from various places I've worked where we've got clear brand guidelines, but thinking, can we do something a little bit different? One of the things I know some people have spoken to me about previously, and of course this depends on like capacity, resources, but the idea of having some quite authentic organic videos. So where we've previously, I guess a campaign video a few years ago would be some really high produced kind of flashy content that you'd need video producers and editors for. A lot of people now are finding that actually a face to camera smartphone video can be really engaging. And actually if you have members of staff or volunteers who are happy to submit videos, if you've got a bit of a brief or a mini script or something, it doesn't have to be this really highly polished thing. That might be new for you as an organization, and I think often we're going to be a bit hesitant to that, but if you can get kind of permission to give it a go and try something like that, that can be a really nice way of adding the human element without it needing to be this kind of like big, totally different, like you want to be telling your organization story for who you are and really authentically, and often those videos can be the way to do that, or what different types of content that involve kind of real people, real stories, even from staff member volunteer perspective, encouraging people, inviting people to join in the campaign can be really effective. But I think that's addressed questions that we've seen in the chat. If you have any more, always feel free to drop us a message at support@lightful.com. We'll be very, very happy to help. But thank you everyone so much for sharing. You've shared amazing examples, ideas. Big thanks to Jimmy as well for doing that campaign spotlight. That's been super inspirational. Thank you all for joining. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and we'll see you again very soon. But thank you all, and speak soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Hey,